Today, we're going to be talking about unit conversions. Now, this is the first set of notes in Unit 2. Hopefully, you printed out the packet that goes along with this unit. This is the first unit in the honors chemistry where you're not going to have guided notes. So you want to get out a piece of paper and a pencil or a spiral. And you also need a calculator. So if you don't have those things in front of you, why don't you pause the program and go ahead and get those things ready for yourself. All right, so hopefully you have something to write and you have a calculator, because we're going to need a calculator for this unit and the next unit, to be honest, and then we don't use a calculator for a while. Before we get started, as you guys are getting set up, I would like to kind of go through a couple things with you. So this is the next schedule for the next unit. It's a rather big unit. We do not have school this Friday. So our quiz is moved up to Thursday of this week. And also on the live Wednesday class for this week, we are actually going to have class. We're going to do an activity that you guys have in here. Hopefully you guys get it printed out. You will need to do this worksheet. And if you have a ruler, get a ruler. And if not, I have a printed ruler there, but you will need these pieces of paper as well. Okay. So Wednesday class, make sure you're there during your assigned period, and we will have an actual class that day. Okay. All right. So that's kind of what we have going on. Another thing that I want to remind you of when we are doing things here. So you found these notes here in the Monday folder, and the worksheet is here, and the answer key is always beneath it. You're probably going to want to start checking the answer key more often now that we're getting into some of the actual content. So do the worksheet and then make sure you check everything with the key. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Today's notes are not by any means ground shaking. It is a skill that you need to know, especially if you plan on taking physics or AP chemistry, things like that. So it is a skill that you got to know. You might have learned something about unit conversions in your previous science classes, but we're just going to give it another shot now. So if I asked you the question, I measured out 24 inches. How many feet is that? You could all probably tell me, well, 24 inches. I know how many inches are in a foot. So I would tell you, or you would tell me, that is 2 feet. Wonderful. Now, what you probably don't know is what you did in your head was an actual unit conversion. You said, all right, if I have 24 inches, and that's my given, and I know that for every 1 foot, there is 12 inches in 1 foot. Then all you did was you took your mental note and you multiplied across, and you ended up getting 24 over 12, and then you divided that, and that gave you 2 feet. Okay, so what you did in your head was a unit conversion. So there's a couple rules in unit conversions, and these are when you're going to start to write your own notes. So I would suggest at the top writing Unit 2, unit conversion notes. You might want to paraphrase. I try to highlight in red the things you actually do want to write down. And you may paraphrase even further than that if you would like. And I also suggest you write at least one example down in your notes. So when we come back to a test, or if we are doing semester exams or whatever we're doing, you would then have an example for yourself. So label it up, Unit 2, unit conversions notes. I have 2 rules, and then I'll give you 5 steps. The first rule is that you always want to make sure you cancel units. So whatever is on the top of one always must end up on the bottom of the next one so that they cancel out mathematically. Okay, so you always cancel out units. And the second rule is you always need to show your work, okay, and you must do so neatly. One of the biggest mistakes that happens all the time is that people would write 1 pound. And so here is 1, and then they would write LB. And if you don't write this neatly, do you know what number 1 turns into? Turns into 11. very easily. And there's a little example of this later on that I kept running. I'm like, why is everybody getting this one wrong? And it's because so you want to make sure that you're writing things neatly so that you can read it. Okay, so and you always want to show your work. All right, let's get into the steps. And if I go too fast, please feel free to pause the program and catch yourself on up. But it's kind of hard to lecture at a good pace when I'm talking to myself. So here we go. So for instance, let's say that we have an example of, I have 60 quarters. I would like to know how many dollars there are. And I know that you can probably do this in your head, but I'm choosing an easy example in order to show you how to lay out your work. So as it gets harder, you'll have the steps. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take whatever you're given. Okay. Oh, goodness. Too big of an eraser. The first thing you want to do is you want to write out the given as a fraction, and you always write your units. Whenever you're doing unit conversions, you must always have the units so you know how to cancel them out. Okay. So the first thing, step one, write the given. So I've been given 60 quarters as a fraction. So I'm going to write 60 quarters over 1, and it has the units. Good. Step two, set up the conversion so the units cancel out. So if I have quarters on the top, what I need on the bottom is quarters, and sometimes I write that before I get going, and I want to go from quarters to dollars. You will be given conversions here in a minute. Hopefully you can see you'll have conversions, but I don't have them here because this one's easy. Do you know a conversion from quarters to dollars? How many quarters are in a dollar? Good. 4. So set up your conversion so that you have 4 quarters for every $1. So that's step 2. Wonderful. Step 3. You want to go, so again, trying to show you what you write. So you might want to say, do this until the units you want are on the top of the fraction. So you can see that what we have is the quarters cancel out, and I am left with the unit that I want on the top. So step 3, check. Then the next 2 steps are just a little bit of math. You multiply horizontally. So you might want to write multiply across if you want. So 60 times 1 is 60, and then you divide vertically. 4 times 1 is 4. And when I divide 60 by 4, because you probably already had it in your head, that is $15. Okay. So if you didn't write this step or this example down with me because you were writing your steps, which I completely understand, let's do one example in your notes. And again, you can probably do this in your head, but we're just showing you the steps so you have a good example. So I'd write down in my notes, 45 eggs is how many dozen eggs? And let's do this one together. Step 1, write the given as a fraction with units. So I have 45 eggs over 1. Step 2, set up the conversion so that units cancel out. So I want, oops, excuse me, there's an S there. I want eggs on the bottom. How many eggs are in a dozen? Good. There are 12 eggs in 1 dozen. And it says do this until the units you want are on the top. So I'm eggs, eggs. Dozen is what I'm looking for. Perfect. So then I'm going to multiply across. 45, 1 times 12, 12. Divide. 45 divided by 12 is 3.75 dozen eggs. Okay, so those were super simple. Let's see if we can't get it a little bit harder. It is honors chemistry. As you see right here, I just have the same steps that you have on your paper. You don't have to rewrite them at all. Let's just do one that would be a little bit longer to make you have to work for it. All right, so step 1, given, write the given in the form of a fraction with units. So I have 234 seconds, and how many hours is that? So this is going to be more than just one step because I can't go directly from seconds to hours. I mean, I guess you could, but let's take the steps out. I have 234 seconds. Write it as a fraction with the unit. Check. Step 2, set up the conversion to the unit cancels out. So I'm seconds on the bottom. Now, I want to find a way to take seconds and I want to make it bigger to get it closer to hours. So do you know a conversion from seconds to something that is closer to hours? Good. 60 seconds in 1 minute. And so now the seconds cancel out. And it says do this until the units you want are on the top. Do I want to end in minutes? I do not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going and I want to end when I have hours on the top. So I'm going to think of another conversion. I have minutes here, so I'm going to write minutes on the bottom and I'm going to think about it. Can I convert minutes into hours? Absolutely. There are 60 minutes in every 1 hour. So now check these. Check, check. Did I finish step 3? Go until the units you want are on the top. They are on the top. Multiply across. So 234 times 1 times 1 and 60 times 60. That gets me 234 over 3,600. When you divide 234 in your calculator by 3600, go ahead and punch that in your calculator and tell me what you get. Wonderful. 0.065 hours is what you're going to get. Perfect. So now let's make this all kind of go to the way that we want to kind of have things happening. Here is your packet. So hopefully you have this printed out. And the top here has a conversion. So you can stop your notes and we're working here in the packet. Then do a couple of these along with me. Take a look around some of these. Some of these you're going to be using very commonly. Sometimes you're not. We have liters to milliliters, kilograms to pounds, kilograms to grams, grams to milligrams, meters to centimeters, kilometers to meters. The very important one I want you to circle, and I always, when we're in class, make everybody circle this one, 1 inch to 2.54 centimeters. It is very challenging to convert in metric units to, and I am doing a terrible job because I messed up my one. It is a challenge to convert metric measurements to English measurements. So whenever you see something like number 1, this is a metric. We're talking kilometers, meters, millimeters, centimeters. To English units like feet, miles, yards, things like that. Whenever you have one that you have to convert between metric and English, you have to use what's called the distance gateway. That means you have to go through this conversion in order to accurately convert it. Okay, good. And then looking at some of the other ones that we have here, we have yards, feet to inches, and miles to feet. So there is no good way to simply go from kilometers here to miles if you wanted to. You have to go all the way down through the distance gateway. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. So let's do number 1 together. So the first thing we do, and if you want to think back to our steps, you can have your worksheet out and we're working on these 3 steps. So the first one, write what you've been given, write it in, let's erase some of this, get this business out of the way. Write what you've been given in the form of a fraction with units. So I would like to know 5 kilometers, how many feet that is. So I know I need to go through the distance gateway. So I'm going to write 5 kilometers over 1. Before I even start to look for any of my conversions, I go ahead and write kilometers on the bottom. So what I'm going to try to find is I need to make kilometers smaller so that I can go through the inch gateway and the inch to centimeter gateway or back and forth. So I look up here and I see that I can get kilometers to go to meters. So I'm going to put that here, and there is 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So now what you can see is that I've gotten rid of the kilometers for step 2. Step 3 says keep going until you get what you want on the top. And I want feet and I'm at meters, so I'm not done. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for another one with meters. Oh, here's a meters one. I can take meters into centimeters. And so I guess I should have done this before I looked up. I have meters on the top here. I need meters on the bottom. Why are you not erasing? I need meters on the bottom here. And so 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So I got rid of meters, and now I'm at centimeters. I'm not at feet yet, but I'm at centimeters. So what I can do now is I can use this distance gateway. I can go from metric into English units. So as soon as I see centimeters, I say, all right, I need centimeters on the bottom. I'm trying to get into English units, so I'm going to use the distance gateway. 2.54 centimeters in every 1 inch. Good. Now we're getting closer and closer. I'm in inches, and I want to have feet at the top instead. So I'm going to go one more, and I'm going to put inches on the bottom so it'll cross off, and then you either know, or you can look it up here if you would like, that every 1 foot has 12 inches in it. So I'm going to put the 12 inches on the bottom is in every 1 foot, and then I can take this here, and I can cancel out inches. And then for step 3, I am done here, and sorry for the interruption. I should have my door closed. So you end up with feet on the top, inches out, and we end up with what we want. So now, if you're looking at your steps, we have started it. We canceled them out to what we want is on the top. We're going to multiply across, divide up and down. So if I do 5 times 1,000 times 100 times 1 times 1 on the top, we're going to get a nice large number of 500,000. And then on the bottom, I'm going to do 1 times 1 times 1 times 2.54 times 12. And the number that you're going to get for that is 30.48. So now I want you to grab your calculator, and I would like for you to go ahead and give me the final answer. All right, very good. You should be looking at 16,404 would be the number of feet in 5 kilometers. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do some more of these practices. This will absolutely be on the quiz on Friday, so you want to make sure you know how to do these unit conversions. And then if you want to check, remember your answers, if you want to check them, the key is right beneath this lecture. And don't forget to go and do the unit conversions lecture questions right underneath this video. And last thing, make sure you know Wednesday's class, we're actually going to be doing an activity. So you want to make sure that you have this worksheet from the packet, or you can print it off for Wednesday. And then you need these rulers, and go ahead and cut them on out. Thank you.